This is the collision course that we are on. I don't think Minnesota loses this series to Denver, and I certainly don't believe Oklahoma City is going to lose to Dallas.
Can you trust them? Kyrie, can you trust them? Luka, can you trust them? This team, I don't know if I can trust them.
They seem to have that extra oomph, that extra engine that you need to rev up and turn it on more so than Dallas does.
So really what I don't trust is individually in the playoffs what they do. That's the only them.
Oh, I'm taking Minnesota, absolutely.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, absolutely. For one, speed does not speed up Luka, but length does.
Luka.
No, it's not. It's Anthony Edwards. He's the best. Well, he's been the best player in the series in the last two series.
If there's any group of players this season who deserve to have a chip on their shoulder, it is Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, and the entire Dallas Mavericks team. As coming into the postseason, nobody gave this team a chance in hell of making the West Finals, let alone the NBA Finals. And looking back at all their matchups, you can actually argue this team was the underdog in all these series. Versus the Clippers, even minus Kawhi Leonard, that was a toss-up series. Versus the Thunder, SGA getting MVP hype, the youngest team in the NBA. Then of course in the West Finals, the NBA's newest golden boy, and the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are the team of destiny.
If they could do what they did to Denver, which I don't think Denver cowered. I think Denver was beaten by this defense. There's not a better offense remaining.
And in this specific video today, I'm going to talk solely about Luka Doncic, and tomorrow's video will be all Kyrie Irving. So just understand that I'm not downplaying discrediting Kyrie. He'll have a whole video on himself tomorrow. Now today, we're looking at Luka Doncic. This guy at 25 years old has made 5 straight first-team All-NBAs. And despite that success, the accomplishments, the accolades, isn't regarded as one of the best players in the world or a future face of the NBA.
But the best player in the series? Luka.
No, it's not. It's Anthony Edwards. He's the best. Well, he's been the best player in the series in the last two series. Listen, here's the thing about KD, right? We could go down the list and we could look at all these fantastic players. And yes, I left some off and Luka and all that. And yes, I left some off and Luka and all that.
Make no mistake about it, the Dallas Mavericks in this series were heavy underdogs. And for the entire media, what's the more flashy, exciting story? Anthony Edwards, the next MJ, making the finals at only 22. Or that Slovenian guy in Kyrie Irving, their 5th seed, getting to the finals. What's the more intriguing storyline, and the storyline ESPN would want and hope for? And when it comes to Luka's overall production, I mean this year in the postseason, the points, rebounds, field goal percentage, to a typical Luka playoff run, look a little bit subpar. But that's why raw stat numbers can be very deceiving. As what Luka's gone through this playoff run is from the toughest 2 months of his career. Not because he's playing both ends of the floor, but because he's playing injured and essentially on one leg. And at certain points versus OKC and especially the Clippers, I mean this dude was visibly hobbling, dragging one leg up the floor. He looked seriously hurt and has shelved himself in numerous games in both those series. And to Luka's credit, in the wins, the losses, the bad games, the good games, never made injury excuses or blamed his knee for subpar play. And looking at the back half of that OKC series, and especially the West Finals, Luka is looking closer and closer to the typical Luka Doncic. And how do you know that? His jump shot from 3 isn't nearly as flat, and on defense in the West Finals, he's locked in. I mean, look at these stats from Luka Doncic over his last 5 ball games. 31.6 points, 9.4 assists, 8.6 boards on 50-45 and 88 splits. That right there is healthy playoff Luka and the best version of Luka. And some might say it's a hot shooting streak, he's finally knocking down jump shots, which I guess it could be true. But for the eye test, Luka Doncic looks much healthier and closer to 100% than he was in the previous 2 series. And one of the big time major narratives coming to the West Finals is that Minnesota's defense was historically great. Some were saying bad boy Pistons, 04 Pistons, early 90 Bulls levels. People were saying that, Bill Simmons. But Yeah, the Timberwolves defense was getting hyped to the moon and back, and Jaden McDaniels was a very good defender. People were saying this dude could realistically limit Luka and keep him in check.
Speed doesn't bother him, but length can definitely affect him. Jaden McDaniels guards Luka Doncic better than anybody in the NBA. I think it's almost like a proven stat. He guards him better than anybody else in the NBA. That's going to be his sole assignment.
Now, Austin Rivers right there, what he's saying, it sounds good in theory. McDaniels, a long, lanky defender, and Luka, just a slow white guy. It sounds good in theory, but in practice, it hasn't gone well. 14 points, 6 of 14 shooting, 50% from deep. Game 2, again, 14 points, 5-11 shooting, 2 of 4 from deep. And then Game 3, an absolute bloodbath, 17 points, 5 of 8 shooting, 3 of 5 from deep. When McDaniels has guarded Luka Doncic, Luka has 45 total points on 48.5% shooting and above 50% from 3. And look, I can't fault Jaden McDaniels because, again, he's a great defender. But in today's NBA, the offensive era we're in, nobody is stopping Luka Doncic. I don't care if it's a prime Scottie Pippen, Iguodala, or Kawhi Leonard. Nobody's stopping Luka Doncic in this specific era. And one thing I told you guys to look out for, if Dallas wins this series, wins a couple of games, how would they frame the series? Would it be Dallas is playing great, Dallas is closing, would they give them their credit, their adulation? Or would they do the latter? You know, what can Minnesota do to win, to come back from down 1-0, 2-0, or 3-0? And it'd be the typical blame game. It's Gobert's fault, Cat's fault, it's the role player's fault. They wouldn't give Luka, Kyrie their credit, but instead, they blame Minnesota's supporting cast for not winning the series.
They haven't shown. I don't like the fact that he was benched. You got a guy, Karl Anthony Towns, in there. He can't be on the bench for the last 9 minutes again. I don't give a damn what's going on. You Finch, you got to have him out there. This is the Western Conference Finals, right? You have got to stand. You got to stand up, and you got to make sure. Just make sure it ain't you. A lot of times we're looking at a lot of things. We're looking at a lot of people looking at clutch situations or what have you. In anything in life, you know what we say to folks? Just make sure it ain't you.
I understand Karl Towns has been downright awful, and even Edwards for his standards has been subpar. But it's not like Minnesota's lost by 30, 25 points in all 3 of these games. I mean, Minnesota games 1 and 2, they had pretty sizable leads. And even game 3, were by 5 points in Dallas late in the 4th quarter. What this series came down to isn't Karl Towns' bad shooting, Minnesota's bad role players. What this series has come down to is Kyrie and Luka Doncic are the best closing duo currently in the NBA and possibly all time. As we're looking at most duos in NBA history, typically you have your Shaq, your dominant big man, and then your Kobe, the closer, the shooter, the guy who creates offense for himself and for teammates. For this Kyrie-Luka duo, they're both built in the Kobe archetype. Score-first players who can pass and create their own shot late and hit timely, big jumpers. And looking at this year's conference finals, these two guys' 4th quarter scoring, it's just downright comical, and it looks like fake stats. Kyrie in the 4th quarter, 10 points per game, 50% shooting, 70% from 3, with a plus-minus of plus 5.7. Luka right behind him, 9 points per game, 64% shooting, nearly 70% from 3, with a plus-minus of plus 7.7. I'm telling you guys, calling the Kyrie-Luka duo the best closing duo of all time, it's not hyperbole. And as great as those stats are when you watch the actual games, the big-time shots these guys hit, the series-altering shots, career-altering shots, they make your jaw drop. I mean, look at Luka Game 1 in Minnesota. Essentially the dagger shot from the mid-range over Jaden McDaniels. Game 2, Kyrie Irving in the corner. Down 5, shot clock winding down, under a minute left, hit a 3-pointer to keep Dallas in the game. And of course, Luka finished it off, the shot over Gobert to go up 2-0. And then tonight, virtually the exact same thing, just inversed, as Luka Doncic hit the mid-range jumper, pushed the lead to 4, and then Kyrie iced the game with a jump shot in the deep corner. These two guys' shot-making, shot creation late in games, it's second to none. And like I said earlier, it's not Minnesota choking this series away, Minnesota blowing it. It's Dallas seizing these games, seizing the moment, and coming up big when it matters most. So that right there is the end of the video. As always, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.